I remember when Peanut Butter Gamer came out with that Breath of the Wild song. I just out of sheer curiosity was tinkering with it to see what I could get out of it, and I accidentally made a karaoke version of the song. That's another thing that's on the personal Tumblr if you want to go dig that up. But that was fun. I don't know. I like messing with audio. I like recording sounds from my daily life and just messing with them. I have a audio assets folder for my YouTube. It's a mile long, man. It's full of weird stuff. At some point, I partially picked apart how they do the Killer Frost voice from the Flash, and I was like, it does this thing, but I don't know what else it does. And then someone else figured it out all the way and posted a tutorial for Adobe's version of an audio editor, and I went, I can do that in Audacity. And I used what that guy pointed out along with what I knew about the Killer Frost voice to I have a set of instructions written down that lets me make arbitrarily any words sound like a Killer Frost line. Actually, I'm going to show that off because I can show off desktop audio because I'm proud of a couple of them. Let me find the right one. Audio assets. And mostly what I recorded was lines from the My Hero fanfiction because uh, because reasons. My character has cryokinesis and so does Killer Frost, so why not? 1.9 million subs of Peanut Butter Gamer. Yeah, he's getting up there, man. He deserves it. He deserves every second, but like he's getting up there. What do we got here? You'd use the press conference one. Um, is this safe for the stream? Hang on. Let this load. I'll make sure it's family friendly. That's not a really good. I don't know. I might use the press conference one. Let's see what the press conference one sounds like. Come on. Okay, that'll work. I'm gonna turn up the volume on the audio player, and we're gonna turn on desktop audio for all of 10 seconds. And I'm gonna show off this thing because I'm proud of it. Play that again. Oh, cool and good. It didn't catch that. Very useful, OBS. Sometimes you're very particular. Please catch the desktop audio this time. Try again.
I'm not at liberty to say.
I'm just such a big fan of how that came out. Honestly, I'm a little proud of it. It's a really neat vocal effect. It's kind of like it's very ghosty. It's very like, it's a neat effect, and it's one of my more impressive audio tinkering moments. Uh, if you watch some of my YouTube stuff, all the intros and outros are my own tinker sound noises things. Um, the end card is just me goofing around on a guitar for 20 seconds, which it's nothing impressive. I'm not a guitarist by any means, but I'm learning. Um, the intro sounds are all well, except for the Orbient videos because I'm actually using the Orbient Wii Select screen, so that one doesn't count. But the normal intros and outros, are all my own stuff. They're just built out of sounds I have recorded out of things in my room, like this heat sink, or there's a set of those little like fairground whistle lips that go like. Like I built some stuff out of that. I have a glass bottle around here somewhere that I made some, uh, you know, sine wavy sounding things out of. I don't know. I love to just play with audio. It's something I enjoy a great deal. Shoot, it's 9:02 p.m. already. All right, now it's time to make a decision. Do we wait for this to finish and play it for an hour and then pass the heck out? Or do I sleep now like a good noodle so I can wake up in the middle of the night to do my work that I had planned for the middle of the night? It's decision time. I should explain that too for the folks who are new here. If you've been here for a long, long time, you know that I sleep very oddly. I sleep in 2 4-hour chunks. Uh, One from currently 9 until 1 in the morning, and then another one from 3 until 7. It's odd to the average listener, but biphasic sleep's perfectly natural, and it's something that my brain has just snapped into naturally. Oh, dude, I love Fortnite's sound effects. I don't know how I feel about Fortnite in general because I haven't played it enough, but Fortnite's sound design, good work. Great work, actually. It's really well done. I'm the biggest sucker for like neat sound effects in games or especially great scores. Like video game music, it's one of those things that like it's designed to just act like ambiance in the game. You're not supposed to think about it, but it's really really cool, and it's often very, very well done. Like Grant Kirkhope, Jake Kaufman, Koji Kondo, they're all three incredible composers. Uh, One of them's a little eccentric, but you know what? That's part of his charm, and he writes incredible music, so I can't roast him too bad about it. Like Jake Kaufman did like Shovel Knight and Shantae, and outside video games he did OKKO, the Cartoon Network cartoon. He does all the music for that. He actually does that live on stream, believe it or not, over at Mint Potion, when he has time anyway. How will I proceed? To sleep or not to sleep? That's right. To sleep, or a chance to dream. I don't know, I'll decide in about 5 minutes here. But I don't know. I could talk all day about video game composers, and they're about the only composers I follow with any degree of frequency. You know, you would think I would follow, some kind of classical music given all of my music background, but it's really not something I follow, which is unfortunate. There's a lot of really good like classical and classical styled music out there existing in the world. Like there are some list pieces that like first of all, how are you playing that? Do you have hands at the end of your fingers? Second of all, that's really cool stuff. Or like there's a piece called so no, I don't remember exactly what it's called. Maybe the Devil's Trill Sonata? I don't remember that. Don't quote me on that one. That might be something else that's also cool. But there's a piece of string music that this guy, I really wish I could remember the composer's name, but I really can't. And it's really cool because this guy, he learned about the overtone sequence. They say if you sleep between 12 a.m. and 2 a.m., that's when your body does most of the self-repairing. I can get away with not a lot of self-repairing. I don't tend to hurt myself often. um, what was I saying? This guy learned about the overtone series, right? And if you don't know what the overtone series is, essentially anytime you sing a note, let's say I sing an A. Give me a second, I gotta pull an A out of my butt. Like an A. Anytime you sing an A or play an A on a stringed instrument, my guitar is very much not in tune, excuse it, but I'm going to play an A into the microphone. It's not going to be a real A, but it's going to get my point across. That's not too far off, actually. Anytime you, especially on a stringed instrument, but generally anytime you make a note in the real world without computer generating it, there are overtones based upon the frequency. And they're at mathematical intervals of the frequency, and these overtones are part of what makes some harmonies work really well because they have like let's say A at 440 hertz has an overtone. I'm pulling this out of my butt. I don't know this actually. Let's say A has an overtone at, let's say A has an overtone at C. It probably doesn't, but I'm just pulling this out of my butt. Let's say A has an overtone at C. So then if you play an A and then the C that corresponds with the overtone of that A, they sound nice together because that A as a component has the overtone of that C. This is not the real overtone. Don't quote me on this. I promise that's not right. Actually, I promise I don't know that that's not right or right. But anyway, the overtones exist. Overtone series exists. Anytime you play a note that isn't computer generated, it has constituent notes at a half, a fourth, an eighth, so on, powers of 2. Well, powers of -2, I guess, since they're fractions. Anyway, they extend upwards in perpetuity, and they get quieter as they rise because they're less. Because, they're only a small component of the full note. And these overtones are part of. And it's actually, overtones can be heard if you have particularly incredible intonation and hit the notes exactly as they are intended to be in a choral setting or in any setting, but it's most common in a choral setting. As an example, let's say me, a bass, sings an A, and then I don't know what other notes would be in a major chord, which is embarrassing. I don't know very much music theory, but let's say me, the bass, sings an A, and we build a major chord off of that root of A. If everyone in the ensemble has intonation with a great enough degree of accuracy, not only will we hear that chord, out of that chord, where all these notes that are in the chord have a shared overtone, they'll interfere such that only the shared overtone, or the shared overtone will essentially come out in bold, auditorily, so to speak, and you'll be able to hear the overtone along with the chord. And it's really cool, and it very rarely happens, but it's super neat to hear, and I don't hear overtones naturally. I don't notice them. But musicians, professional musicians, or music teachers, they notice overtones because they've trained their ear much harder than I have. I've trained my ear. I couldn't have pulled that A out of my butt without having done some training of my ear, but I don't have maximum dump stat ear training. But anyway, back to what I've digressed from. The overtones series is why certain chords sound dissonant, why certain chords sound consonant. And this guy, the thing about the overtone series is they're mathematical. Regardless of what scale you're in, there's things called intonations that alter the overtones of each note to make certain chord progressions sound better. There's just intonation, which a piano uses, where they're not all technically mathematically correct notes. If you look at A is 440 and then define the other notes based on the overtones of that 440 hertz A, it's not mathematically exact, but they're off in such a way that most chords used in Western style music, using the do re mi fa sol la ti do scale, and the major and minor chords, and the bulk of Western music theory, it'll sound good, or it'll sound bad if you're trying to be dissonant, and that's the point. But anyway, the overtone series, this guy took the mathematical overtone series and designed his own scale, an entire world of notes that you play in on a stringed instrument. I don't have my PhD. I've glommed information from 5 billion other places into my brain because I'm a sucker to learn about things, but I don't have the patience for PhD work. But anyway, this guy builds an entire set of scales based on the mathematical overtone series, And the thing about this set of scales is you can only get it on stringed instruments, but there's a caveat to that. Well, I guess you could get it out of a vocalist, but it would be unfathomably precise, and you would have to unlearn the entire Western scale muscle memory that's built into your voice, or whatever scale you learned on. Let's say you learned the Indian. I don't remember what the scale is called. Sorry, but there's like other sets of scales other than the Western, 12 or other than the Western 8-note octave. There's other scales, like there's microtonal scales, is broadly what they're called generally. But like a guitar cannot get these mathematical ratio notes that this dude built because it has those little lines, those little metal lines. Those are frets. That locks that fretboard into a scale. But unfretted stringed instruments like the violin, the viola, the double bass, stuff like that. You could even play it on a fretless guitar if you were skilled enough. On a fretless stringed instrument, you could, in fact, with precise enough finger placement, get this composer's mathematical overtone series scale. I'm sure there's a shorter version of what that's called, but the issue with that is most people who have enough skill with a fretless stringed instrument to even look at this crazy symphony that this dude wrote, they have a lot of muscle memory built on my finger needs to be here to make this note such that it stays in intonation. It's not sharp or flat. So if you're working in a different scale, you have to overcome all of that muscle memory, all of what your hand wants to do for where your finger needs to be. And this guy, because he defined his scales based on the mathematical overtones, he can do it. He can publish a list of like string radii, such that like, oh, your finger needs to be in this exact position to get this particular note, and some of them will be more obvious than others if you're out of place. So you have to spend like virtuosity level hours, like 10,000. When I say virtuosity level hours, I mean like 10,000 hours type of thing. You take 10,000 hours to be a virtuoso in anything. That's a pretty common quote. But anyway, you have to spend like virtuoso level hours just learning your part alone to break down all that muscle memory, or at least store it and not notice it, and like layer on top of all your normal muscle memory this overtone scale thing that this dude built. And then to play this, you have to have at least 4 people. It's at a minimum a quartet. I think at minimum a quartet. So you have to have at least 4 people who are already masterfully skilled in their instrument of choice, who then spend hours upon hours upon hours upon weeks upon months upon potentially years of practice to learn this new math scale to produce this music. And for good reason, there are many people who have said this particular symphony is the hardest possible symphony to ever be written, just because of the huge barrier of entry alone. And like, the barrier of entry of relearning this whole scale is not the only difficult thing about this piece. I've listened to the piece. It's stunningly beautiful and shockingly difficult as well. There's a reason you have to burn this scale into your muscle memory, because sometimes you can't think about, I need this note here, I need this note here. You just have to practice enough that it's in your muscle memory to do some of these high speed runs, or like these pizzicato sections, or just high level string stuff that you already have learned, but now it's in a new context. And it's, like I said, it's literally probably the hardest symphony ever considered to exist in the world. I wish I could tell you where to listen to it. I could tell you if I remembered what the heck it was called. Let me Google Overtone Series Symphony and see if I can find something. Overtone Series Symphony. Oh, it's called the Symphony Fantastique, I think. Hang on. Symphony. Gosh dang it. I know what it's called somewhere in my brain. I just don't remember exactly. Maybe it's the Symphony. It's either like the Symphony Fantastique or Berlioz, is that what it is? Wikipedia, what do you got for me, bud? No, that's a Lisztian era um symphony. Never mind. That's not what I'm looking for. This was composed very recently. Just because the concept of the overtone series is, well, like mathematically the concept of the overtone series is pretty recent if I remember right. Like functionally some composers clearly had like some level of understanding of the overtone series. Like if you listen to some classical composers, it's clear they knew on some level that certain chord progressions or chord choices would work, even though they were far outside the um, what would have been considered standard chord choices of the time. Clearly, some people just had an innate understanding of overtones and how they work and what they are. Hang on, symphony. Hang on, hardest symphony. Hardest symphony. Maybe if we just Google hardest symphony. I don't know. It certainly exists. If I can find a title for you while Googling and talking, um, it's easy to make it impossible to play. What's some hard to perform? There was a YouTube video on it. 10 pieces of music that were once thought impossible to play. Hang on. I'm gonna try and find the YouTube video that talks about it because he links to it. Can I search just my YouTube history? Is that an option? Because I know it's in my YouTube watch history. Let's search my YouTube watch history for hard music. Or like hardest music. Hardest music. What is the most difficult music? Okay. The composer's name is Ben Johnston. He built... No, shush. I don't want to steal this dude's content. Ben Johnston's 7th String Quartet. So I'm going to type that in chat for everyone who's interested. Ben Johnston, 7th String Quartet.